Greetings, good morning, and welcome to our College Planning for Juniors and Parents presentation. My name is Colleen Murray, and I'm the Dean of College and Academic Advising at the Bear Creek School. It's my joy to welcome you this morning. I look forward to answering your questions today and highlighting some important pieces in the college admissions journey. And before we get started, I'd like to open us in a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this time together as we kick off our juniors in their college admissions process. We ask you to cover each with peace and strength, and we know that this is the day that you have made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. And we can do all things through you, for you are the source of our strength, Lord. Amen. I'm super excited to share some valuable information with you, and we will have time for questions and answers, a little Q&A at the conclusion of the presentation. So please feel free to post your questions to the chat. I welcome any questions as well that are specific to your son or daughter, or students that are specific to you. We can certainly discuss those things offline. I'm always available to take your calls and emails, and we can meet certainly to discuss any concerns that are personal to you and your family offline. Absolutely. So let's go. Next slide. Thank you, Pete. Some of the topics that we're going to cover within the next hour or so, we're going to be talking about the important dates and deadlines around this next season for our juniors. We have a little time to focus on the role for each junior, the parents' role in the college admissions and application process. We're going to talk about my role as the college advisor and advocating and aiding the student through the process, guiding the family through the college admissions journey. We're going to talk about that testing timeline. We're going to also hit briefly on requesting teacher and college advisor letters of recommendation for college, and more to come on that. And then we'll hit on the resume and some financial aid pieces. Next slide, thank you. We are going to be kicking off individual college advising meetings for every junior in early January, right after Christmas break. All parents are welcome to join virtually in these meetings. These are very robust. They last an entire period. So we ask our students, when self-selecting their own appointment time, that they look at their academic schedule and keep it in mind. Scheduling during an elective, before or after school, during lunch, study hall would be the best time to meet with me. So those calendars are going to be released in early January once I've collected some information from the students. More on that in a moment. The students are going to be leaving with college ideas. From that meeting, they will have a list of colleges, very rough draft list, because the students are still learning about what they're interested in and defining, after visiting colleges and universities and meeting with reps, what they really want and need in a school of choice. So they will go away with some rough ideas of a college list in pencil. Okay, next slide. Typically, students are averaging around 10 at the Bear Creek School for college apps. We do have some students that might apply to 3 schools. They might have all likely schools on their list. We look at a 3-tiered approach, as mentioned in our sophomore advising meeting we had last April. We look at schools to which a student can certainly be admitted to easily, no problem. And then oftentimes students will also want to include targets and reach schools if they wish. That's perfect. We look at balancing and having a list that is not top heavy. So it's important that we look at a combo, and I'm here to help with that piece. For every student is different. Next slide, thank you. Again, the likelies are the student is right at at well above superseding the average freshman profile at college of choice. He or she has scores and or GPA, a beautiful profile to offer the colleges that supersedes their average freshman that is admitted. You're likely to be admitted. The target schools, again, the student is right in that mid 50% range, right on point for that particular institution. The reaches are those that have perhaps a single-digit admit rate. We also pay attention to the acceptance rates at colleges, certainly, because that has a bearing indeed on one's chances of admission. We'll talk more about that, absolutely. Scores do come into play this season for our rising seniors at some institutions. There's a lot of movement in the testing piece, as we know. During this global pandemic, over 1,800 colleges and universities have gone test optional, meaning the student has the option to send his or her test scores to the institution or not. And that's something I can help with per student and per institution for that student. Next slide, thank you. When the student has their list of colleges noted in Naviance, it will look like this. As you can see on the top right, the student's Naviance page has a home page. On that home page every month is a newsletter that I write for the juniors and when there are seniors as well, and for parents. So the first of every month on the home page of Naviance is the monthly newsletter. It's a way of communicating events, information in a time when students need to be paying attention to deadlines and tasks. That will come through the monthly newsletter. So that's something that a student would want to take advantage of. And on that homepage also, incidentally, is a very robust documents section. The very bottom of the homepage under my monthly newsletter, it'll have information on scholarships, questions to ask on a college visit, maps of parts of the country, how long it takes to get to one place, from one place to another, all of those kinds of things. A plethora of information in the document section on that homepage of Naviance. So that's gold. But for right now, I wanted you to see what the students will see. This is a simulated list of colleges that I've built for a student, and he or she can see the deadline dates and whether or not information has been submitted on his or her behalf from school to the institution. So that's a way that students will be able to track that in the fall. Next slide. The testing piece we're going to hit on in January. We have a special event on the 19th specifically oriented around the differences between these exams. The students, as mentioned, may sit for an SAT or an ACT, and they can decide whether or not they want to send those scores on to the institution. We'll be talking about that at length in the individual meetings with you. Students are typically finishing up their testing in early fall by November. The junior year is the testing year, and the senior year is retesting if necessary. Next slide. The various dates are noted here. Most juniors are picking up their first test in the spring, perhaps February at the earliest. You might have some friends say, I'm taking the SAT this month. Again, that's early, a little early, but it's up to the student if he or she feels prepared and ready to take it. We'll look at those PSAT scores in our junior meeting, and that serves as a nice benchmark. That's the training wheel version of the SAT, if you will. And we can use those scores to project how well one might do on the SAT itself. So these are the various dates, and again, in the fall, they are offered for retesting if necessary. Most students don't sit for the exam more than twice, maybe 3 times, because they end up hitting a wall at some point, and we don't want them to be overburdened with testing and burned out. So please, we'll talk about that. Some students are not keen on taking tests, and they don't have to if the institution is test optional or test blind. Next slide. One of the other pieces that's a highlight of the Bear Creek School is the fact that we do give college app essay support. It's built into this year's junior English class. In the springtime, students are supported by their English teacher in writing the common application essay that they will send to all colleges. So that's a wonderful head start. We mentioned the senior year as well. The English classes briefly hit on that for a couple of weeks. And again, we have tutors support. I read essays. The English department has wonderful teachers that also support our students in reading the application essays. So that's a wonderful leg up for our students. Next slide. After Easter, our juniors will know precisely how to approach a teacher to request a recommendation letter for college. Generally, the students are asking a teacher from junior year, perhaps sophomore year, yes. Sometimes for senior year teacher, if they've had that teacher before grade 12 and that student feels comfortable asking the teacher for a recommendation letter, the colleges will typically require at least one teacher and one college advisor recommendation letter. I write for all students, and so I've asked each of them to fill out a questionnaire for me. I visited all the juniors in early November in their history classes and talked to them about what's coming regarding the questionnaire that is required of them. They've received it yesterday via Microsoft Teams assignment, and they have until the 4th of January to return it to me. That's wonderful information. I gleaned from it in a very marked way in composing a personalized college advisor recommendation letter for them. So that's something that's very important, and I asked them to take their time and fill it out in fine detail. The students will also, in later spring, after Easter, they'll be completing a questionnaire for the teachers that they have asked to write for them. I'll be meeting with all the juniors and letting them know how to go through Naviance and request a teacher to write for them. So that's coming their way. Usually they're letting me know who is writing for them so that I can keep track and help guide and make sure in the fall that those letters get to where they need to go. All right, next slide. The college deadlines, the students are going to be very savvy in this whole process by early fall. Some colleges will offer an early action round. This is when there's a student who is ready to cast an application. They've worked hard on that essay. They might have written a supplemental essay. Some colleges will require an additional supplemental or two about their institution. The students might choose to apply by November 1, November 15 for an early action round. They will typically hear back by late January, certainly by Valentine's Day, as to whether they were accepted or denied or deferred. And so the early action is very popular. Most students are applying to at least one institution or more via the early action round. It is not binding as early decision is. Early action, a student may apply to as many of those as he or she wishes, along with regular decision or perhaps an early decision app. Early decision is where a student is binding him or herself to that institution on the front end. By applying ED, the family signs a document, the student signs a document, I sign a document that we've discussed this, that the student knows that he or she will withdraw all other applications, even before learning whether or not he or she has been admitted, to attend the school that is ED and has accepted him or her. So that's not something to take lightly. This is outside of any financial aid packages that they might offer. On the front end, you're letting the institution know no matter what, we are coming. My student is coming. All right, single choice early action or restrictive early action. Yale, Stanford, some institutions will have a restriction on allowing the student to apply with that non-binding early action round, but they're restricting him or her to apply only to Stanford early, not any others early action, but they're not going to bind the student if the student decides not to attend if admitted. Very interesting, a lot of things, and regular decision is just that. Just good old regular decision. Usually students are applying to a few of those in January, and some schools are rolling. Rolling admission is simply that the student will be admitted within 3 or 4 weeks of applying to an institution, and they're rolling out those decisions as they come in. Okay, next slide. All right, I want to make sure we hit on the fact that, did we skip a slide, Pete? Can we go back one? This is very important because students are managing their college applications in the fall. The students are taking the baton and running with it. They're knowing when those college app deadlines are. They can see them in Naviance, as we peeked at earlier, and they also can see in their college applications on the Common App, for example, when the apps are due. There's actually a little stopwatch clicking down on them as to when the application is due in so many days, you know, so that's the student's responsibility to know and manage that. And every college has its own deadlines, so they vary from institution to institution. University of Washington, for example, does not have early decision or rolling or early action or restrictive early or single choice early. UW has November 15th, and UW only uses the coalition application. So that makes it pretty simple for our students who are working through that application. Not all colleges accept or are members of the common application, and that's fine. Everyone's different. All the decisions will be in front of the student in April. The first week of April, the colleges and universities had notified all of our seniors, and then they have until the 1st of May to make a deposit check to only one institution. The national candidate reply date is May 1st. All right, next slide, thank you. I wanted to offer you a little bit of a timeline and for the month of June. Next slide, thank you, Pete. All right, thank you. In June, I want to lay it out for you so that you know what's coming. I want you to feel at peace, confident, and comfortable in all of this. In June, the juniors will have that draft of colleges built into Naviance. In the interim, he or she may be visiting colleges and universities virtually. Many opportunities to visit colleges virtually. Tons in our resources section of Naviance on how to tap into these wonderful sites where you can fly above and visit colleges and universities. Info sessions galore. The colleges are reaching out to you now during this pandemic in a virtual way, and many are open now for college reservations for college tours through their admissions office with parents and students. So it's a wonderful time to be in research mode. A student will be deciding at the end of this year whether or not he or she is looking at any restrictive app deadlines. If he or she does have designs on applying to all colleges regular decision and none early. And that's, again, conversations in our individual time together about what suits that student best. We'll look at creating a plan for completing those college apps, and I'll make suggestions on which one the student might start with, and just kind of have it personalized to him or her. Many of the colleges, as mentioned, will offer supplemental essays, and those are typically kicked out in the summertime. Next slide, thank you. In July and August, the student is certainly having their summer break, I just want to mention that if a student has a particular application process that will be quite involved, for example, those students who are preparing to audition, we have wonderful artistic students that are preparing audition pieces and recording those, or they're preparing art portfolios and completing their pieces to present in a beautiful art portfolio through their common application to their institutions. The summer is a great time to devote to that focused attention on those supplemental pieces. Again, essays as well. In August, the common application opens up. That does not mean one has to bounce out of bed on August 1st and start working on a college app, but it's available. So some students like to just start working on the initial pieces of the application, the basic name, address, and all of those kinds of things, and just get baby steps going toward completing that application. Okay, next slide. Okay. The Coalition app is also available in August. I'm going to be visiting with the seniors in class, in Christianity class, every month, and I'll be asking them to match or sync their common application with their Naviance account. The student does a quick little 4-minute step that marries the two accounts, and in that way, the colleges and universities will receive the correct documents to match to the correct college application. So that's the Common App matching process. That's extremely important so that I can send documents for your child to the institutions. The students are also working on app essays in August. That's a time when they are not busy with many other things typically. We host application workshops, optional for any interested seniors. We had a big group turn out this August. There are a few of those offered in the month of August for students who want to come to school and start working on their college apps together in group and talking and highlighting pitfalls of the application that students don't notice, those kinds of things. So it's a really good time to be together and to work through the initial parts of the apps process. All right, next slide. In September, I will come into class in Christianity and Contemporary Culture class with our registrar, Mr. Willard, and he will distribute transcripts to all of the seniors, and he will ask them to review it and to have parents review and sign off on the transcript before I submit it to the colleges and universities. Again, students are working through application in group in that class. In the fall, we devote special time for our students to work through college applications and ask questions and get the help they need during Christianity and Contemporary Culture class. I also do mock interviews for students who want to practice before they sit down and interview with a college admissions officer. That's an optional offering on behalf of the institutions, and I always let our students know that if they would like to practice ahead of time, it's very fruitful. It really does help them to relax and to think about the different kinds of questions that might be coming their way in a application or admissions interview. So that's something that I wanted to throw out there now for students who might even be interviewing before senior year. So let me know if I can help you in any way to practice. Okay, next slide, thank you. In October, all of our teachers have actually finished writing for you. I always ask them to please have their letters uploaded into Naviance by Halloween in case a student is applying via the early action round. So that's something that's being worked on by teachers in the early fall, and they have that completed for you by the end of October. There again will be some time to work on app essays in English class. This is also a time when students are going to be sending their scores from testing to the colleges and universities. It can take a good 5 weeks sometimes for the colleges to receive the score report from College Board or from the American College Test. So we always let our students know well ahead of time the different kinds of things to take advantage of. These students will be receiving a calendar as well. That's a nice month-by-month guide to highlight all the various components of this process so that they can pin it on the back of their bedroom door and adhere to this senior calendar. Anyway, I also have a very beautiful college handbook that I'm preparing for each of you. I give a nice party favor to you when we meet individually. So that's something that you can lean into and utilize throughout the process. It's very robust. It has a ton of information. So you can look forward to that college handbook coming your way. And again, as mentioned, we have monthly newsletters, and it's very helpful to just take a quick glance, especially students, at that monthly newsletter all the way until graduation. A lot of information coming your way. Next slide, thank you. So the application season usually concludes by finals week, December, grade 12. Our seniors currently are putting the finishing touches on their last applications. Many of them have finished their apps, and so they turn their attention to ensuring that their application files are complete at each institution. There's things that are still happening after one completes the college apps. And so I'm still dipping into class, meeting with seniors, many of them still coming in individually to meet with me and to have guidance in various aspects of their process. So this is a fluid process. It's very different for each student, certainly. And, you know, we just want you to know that everyone has their own timing and everyone has their own way of going about this process. So we want to stay out of the comparing one another mode if possible. I think it's really important for the students to also tap into the admissions officers at each institution. Again, they come to our school to meet with you. All juniors and seniors, sophomores, freshmen are welcome to attend the college admission officer visits. Those are in the fall. The colleges are not visiting currently to the high schools because do you know what they're doing right now? December? They're reading through all the college applications that were just sent to them. So they are sitting in their condominiums, reading away through college apps till all hours of the night. So these reps are very, very busy, but they are a resource to you. And certainly as you're attending those visits virtually, you'll want to ask the questions that you want the answers to. And that's how they get to know you. All right, so let's go to the next slide. Thank you. And now we'll talk about the student responsibility. Next slide. The students who I think navigate this process most successfully are those that own the process. The students that come in and ask questions, that come in to tell me news, I get to know them really well, and in that way I can advocate for them in a very strong way with their institution. Those students, those students that are aware of the colleges on their list are writing their own college app essays. Certainly the student is applying, the student is filling out the apps, the student is requesting the teacher to write for him or her, and we'll talk about that closer to April. I'll be dipping back in and talking to juniors again. I'll be coming back to class to talk to you. The students are researching colleges and universities and attending info sessions. And in this way, the colleges are tracking those who are demonstrating interest in them. Some colleges greatly value demonstrated interest on behalf of the student. And that is something that can be very helpful in putting a little thumb on the scale if it comes down to splitting hairs later on down the line in an admission decision. They will look back at their archived messages and emails and conversations that they've had with a prospective student, an applicant, and discern whether or not that student might attend if they offered an admission decision to him or her. That's an important thing because the colleges and universities are keenly aware of yield. And yield means they get your deposit check by May 1st. So colleges and universities are going to put their money on or admit students whom they think will accept their offer of admission. So if we back it up and look at all the different things that we have control over in this admissions process, there are many, many, many things. Do you visit with the admission officer who's probably reading your app when he or she comes to your high school? Do you attend college fairs and make yourself known by introducing yourself and standing out from the pack? Do you decide to take tests or not, or send scores? You have control over what essay prompt you write on out of the many choices on the application. You have control over how much time you devote to refining and writing your essays. You have control over what colleges you choose to apply to. You decide the colleges that you're applying to, and I help you to find those. You have control over whether you waited till the day before to complete your college app or worked on it a good month ahead of time. You have control over writing a thank you note after an admission officer has visited your school. Many, many things for students to do and have control over. All right, next slide, please. And next slide. As mentioned, one of the greatest joys that I have as your college advisor is to be a liaison for you and the institution. I advocate for you. Colleges and universities want to hear from college advisors. They want to learn about the student in the application process. They learn from you, the student, and they learn from me, the college advisor, who you are and what you have to bring to that community. So it's a privilege to be able to talk to them about you. It's so much fun. And so that's something that comes out certainly in many conversations that I have with college admission officers and with students. I'm writing on your behalf in support of you, and then sending all your documents as well to the colleges and universities. I'm helping you with all those application questions. I have a senior pinging me right now as we're talking with a question about a college app. And so we're here to help you, to advise you, and just keep it calm and keep it focused and in control. And again, the parents are also completing a survey, optional of course. I greatly value all the information that you have to share with me and helping me to best know your student. And so thank you, parents, in advance for completing the parent questionnaire if you can. That's super helpful to me. Next slide, thank you. I also fulfill all your transcript requests. Mr. Willard, our registrar, prepares those. They are uploaded into Naviance. I send an initial transcript to all of your colleges that are early round apps in October. And then in the middle of the year, after Christmas break, I come back to school and I send mid-year reports and transcripts. Those will include your senior year grades. And then at the end of the year, when you graduate, I send one transcript to the school that you've chosen to attend. And so that's your final transcript to confirm your graduation from the Bear Creek School. I also work in supporting teachers as they are writing letters. I read teacher letters, and I also help to ensure that those letters are posted to Naviance and submitted to the colleges and universities in the right timing, and working with parents, answering parent questions, supporting you as well. All right, next slide. And how can parents help? Again, parents are extremely important. I am a parent of 3 daughters. Parents are helping keep the focus for students. For my daughter, I helped arrange the trips, the travel to the colleges. I went online and I made reservation for our daughter and my husband and I to visit colleges. I think that's perfectly fine for parents to help with that, or even sending SAT scores with a credit card to the colleges. I think that's absolutely appropriate and fine for parents to be supporting in that way, and also certainly helping students to discern what the right match would be as far as an institution to apply to. Communicating confidently, helping the student to really self-advocate, and working through connecting with their admission officers, their college advisor, their teachers, all of those things, keeping them on a nice, manageable schedule. Next slide, please. This is important for families. We talked about this in our meeting last time in the sophomore year. We want families to really have those rich conversations on the front end. If there are any parameters perhaps that might be in place, financial or geographic or anything of that matter, we do want the students and families to be thinking and talking about those well before they have been admitted. So that it just is a clean and predictable process. I think that's keenly important for families to consider and think about. Planning again for preparing the student for interviews. Sometimes parents or relatives will help prepare a student for an interview, and that's a nice way to dip in as a family in support of the student. Next slide. The free application for federal student aid, the almighty FAFSA form, opens up in October. That's when the family, if they choose to apply for financial aid at a particular institution, they can begin to work on the FAFSA form. Every year we have a financial aid nuts and bolts presentation for parents. That is very, very helpful in completing the FAFSA and answering any questions around it. There's also a college-specific form called the CSS profile that some colleges will require in addition to the FAFSA. A lot of information coming your way on these pieces, but I wanted you to have that now. Some private colleges have massive aid to give away. They're sitting on a pile of money that they have to give to somebody. So they will require you to fill out the CSS profile annually once your student is in college, and the FAFSA form. So those things are coming your way in the early fall. Every college has its own deadline dates for returning those forms. So you want to keep your eye on the ball with regard to when the financial forms are due at college of choice. All right, next slide, please. An award letter will be coming out to the family, to the student upon acceptance. Usually it piggybacks with the acceptance letter. Within a week or two, the college will indicate the financial aid package that they are offering. So there is an estimated family contribution, the EFC, that is calculated after one completes the FAFSA form. And that's indicating how much the family can afford to pay for college. Some colleges will offer a combination package of grants with work study opportunities for the student on campus to earn some funds. They might have a heavy loan in the package. So when you're discerning later on down the line in April, which package is best, looking at the bottom line, you want to be looking at, is this mostly, are they loaning me out or are they giving me some free grants here? And this package is better than that. Some students will be aiming at colleges and universities that meet 100% of need. Again, many different kinds of colleges and universities out there, and many have excellent aid packages. So something to think about for later on down the line. All right, next slide. Again, thank you parents for completing the survey. If you can do that, it's keenly important. I will use any information that you share with me that you would like me to have, and I begin working on those letters in the summertime. So if I can have the parent questionnaire by June, I'd be very grateful. It's very important and helpful to me. And so students, you have time to get to class certainly by 9, but I just wanted to open it up to any questions that you might have for me to post into the chat. Now would be a great time to do that. And I've also posted some of the excellent reads that you know, I can suggest for families to dip into. How to Raise an Adult, Where You Go Is Not Who You'll Be by Frank Bruni, excellent book. The Colleges That Changed Lives, an excellent read by Lauren Pope. Some hidden gem colleges, many colleges and universities that are out there for you. So we will talk a lot about that during our individual meeting. And as I get to know you, I review all of the things that you've written to me before we meet so that I can already have some colleges and universities pulled for you to discuss. No questions at all at this time? Okay, so as mentioned, the juniors will be meeting with me starting in January. Those go through March. I'll be kicking out a link to those students who have completed their student questionnaire. The link will be released on the same day to everyone, but I do ask that the student return the assignment of the questionnaire before scheduling a meeting. That's my request, and that way we can have a really fruitful meeting that's personalized to that student. I'm all yours if you have any questions. I see no questions in the chat. Do you, Pete? No questions? Okay. No. Anything at all? Well, thank you for being here. Let me see. Nothing at all. Okay. Well, I'm so glad that we could connect today, and I thank you, and I'm super excited to begin working with all of you and getting to know you better. And it's an exciting process, a super personalized process. So we want to make sure that you have your questions answered. So please do reach out to me if I can be of help in any way between now and when we meet together. And thank you for being here.
Sorry, Ms. Maria, a question just came in about the meeting appointments. When will the meeting appointment link be available?
Oh, thank you. I see it now. The meeting appointment link will be available after Christmas break, that very first week in January. I'm going to be collecting those questionnaires, and they are due that first day back from Christmas break. So once the questionnaires are viewed and collected and I see that they're completed, I'll be able to share that link out. So that's just something that I need to have before scheduling all those meetings. So if a student has not completed the questionnaire completely, they won't be scheduling a meeting until it's completed. But the link for those who have completed their questionnaire for me will be available the first week in January. And the student will go on and schedule themselves with their academic calendar in mind. But that'll be right after Christmas break. Thank you for that question. Any other questions that came up or are on your mind? Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope you all have a blessed day and looking forward to connecting with you individually. Thank you so much for coming. Bye-bye.